There have been a lot of questions lately about the powers of the president. Can a president fire a member of an independent agency? Does the president have to spend money appropriated by Congress? Is it legal for the president to send the National Guard to cities? Most of these questions can be answered by understanding a single constitutional point, the Unitary Executive. We'll discuss that next on the Constitution Study.
Neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution. Teach your rising generation be free. I'm glad you could join me today. I'm going to delve a little bit into the presidency and understanding the concept and the constitutionality of a unitary executive. And I think that will help set the standpoint, the standard for which we can later ask questions about the other powers of the president. Now, if you want to find out more, if you want to check my sources, we'll just go to the website constitutionstudy.com and you'll find this article, and all of my sources have links where you can go check my sources and make sure that I'm getting this right. I'll talk more about the website and other ways you can help the work that we're doing here at the Constitution Study at the end of the episode. But for now, let's get into this question of a unitary executive. Before we get into the details, I think it's worth spending some time understanding some of the arguments behind those who oppose the idea of a unitary executive presidency. Let's start with an article I found on Democracy Docket, where we read, "Since taking office, President Donald Trump has executed a whirlwind of dismissals across the federal government that violated federal statutes and decreed numerous executive orders, including one that blatantly defied the plain language of the Constitution. Behind the seemingly scattershot opening acts of this second administration, legal analysts see a common goal: to test a once fringe legal theory which asserts that the president has unlimited power to control the actions of the 4 million people who make up the executive branch." First of all, the very idea that the executive branch has over 4 million employees should disturb all of us. How did the federal government, endowed with limited and enumerated powers by the Constitution, grow so large as to need such a workforce in a single branch? Our goal today is not to debate the validity of the actions of President Trump, but what Democracy Docket calls a once fringe legal theory, commonly called the unitary executive. This so-called fringe theory comes directly from Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. Now, I'm sure you were taught in school that the federal government is made up of 3 co-equal branches, but that's not exactly correct. You see, the Constitution states, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. And as I've already shown, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States. In other words, the Constitution not only created what we now consider the heads of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government, but vested those heads with their power. These branches of government are there to support and assist the entities created by the Constitution. For example, while there are plenty of aides, committees, and functionaries in the legislative branch, it's the Congress, consisting of the Senate and House, that actually holds the legislative power. Similarly, while the judicial branch includes all of the clerks and aides, the judicial power is vested solely in the courts. So why would the executive branch be any different? Now, even in George Washington's time, the executive power of the United States was more than one person could handle alone, which is why the Constitution, referring to the president, stated, "And he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and councils, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law." Furthermore, the Constitution also granted, "The President may require the opinion in writing of the principal officers in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices." So while Congress creates the offices, the President appoints, with the advice and consent of the Senate, who holds those offices, and those officers report to him. The idea of an independent executive agency, as with so many other unconstitutional ideas, goes back to the early 20th century. In the 1903 Supreme Court case Schertfeld versus United States, the court found, in the absence of constitutional or statutory provision, the president can, by virtue of his general power of appointment, remove an officer even though he were appointed by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. This power, assuming but not deciding that Congress could deprive the president of the right to exercise it in such a case as this, cannot be taken away by the mere inference or implication. In the absence of plain language in the statute, Congress will not be presumed to have taken it away. The fundamental flaw in the court's decision was assuming that Congress has the power to take away from the president his executive power. While there are many things that Congress can do with regards to the presidency, restricting his executive power is not one of them, since that power is established not by Congress, but by the Constitution of the United States. Then, in 1914, Congress created the Federal Trade Commission. Setting aside the question of the constitutionality of the FTC, Congress attempted to insulate the commission from the power of the president. Any commissioner may be removed by the president for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. Now, the power to execute laws is not vested in Congress, but solely in the president. So Congress does not have the constitutional authority to tell the president how to exercise his executive power, only to punish him for any high crimes or misdemeanors he may commit. Remember, Congress makes the law and the president executes them, but those laws must be made in pursuant to the Constitution to be the supreme law of the land. As we read from Article 6, Clause 2, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. So when Congress passes a law that infringes on the constitutional power of the presidency, if that law is not made pursuant to the Constitution, it's not only not the supreme law of the land, but as Alexander Hamilton put it in Federalist 78, it's void. There is no disposition which depends on clear principles, that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised, is void. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. Now, these so-called independent agencies are Congress's attempt to fundamentally change the nature and functioning of the federal government. This is done by effectively creating a fourth branch of government, executive agencies that are not overseen by the executive powers of the United States and are therefore overseen by no one. Furthermore, by investing these agencies with the power to make rules that have the force of law, Congress not only usurped the powers of the president, but abdicated their lawmaking powers, both in violation of the Constitution of the United States. It seems Congress, with the assistance of the Supreme Court and the apathy of the presidency, have conspired to change the United States from a republic to an oligarchy where a group of unelected bureaucrats have the power to make law without the consent of the governed. And now that one president has stood up to this coup against we the people and the rule of law, some experts claim the plain language of the Constitution is a fringe theory. Now, since the idea of a unitary president is the supreme law of the land, I guess it's those who think Congress can rewrite the Constitution by legislation that are fringe. Sadly, we the people have kept electing those usurpers in Congress for over a century. How long before the very idea of the Constitution as the supreme law of the land fades into distant memory? You know, sometimes I'm amazed how a big issue can be solved by a simple argument. The Constitution vests all executive power in the president. All of it. Yes, we have the executive branch to help him do his job, but it is he who executes the law. It is Congress who makes the law, and it is the federal courts that decide cases and controversies under that law. And the very idea that there are people who say that the Constitution is now fringe theory really shows how bad our legal education system has become. Now, as I said, I recommend you go back to the article at constitutionstudy.com and you check my sources. I link everything I can. This isn't weird. This doesn't come out of nowhere. This comes from reading and studying the Constitution. It's something I think you should do. And in fact, if you want help, I recommend my book, The Constitution Study. It's a clause-by-clause study of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, my study written in plain conversational English, so pretty much every American should be able to understand it. You can find the book at Amazon or any place that books are sold. But if you go to the website, constitutionstudy.com/shop, and you buy it from there, well, not only does you get it directly from me, but you can actually ask me to sign the book before I send it out. That's an option while you're there. Now, I don't get a salary. In fact, nobody here gets a salary. We pay for all of this. But if you'd like to support the work that we're doing, well, you could go to the website and donate to the cause. There's a donate button there at the shop. Or you can use your cell phone. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. It's why I joined them. I became their customer years ago. And I liked them so much I became an affiliate. So if you go to patriotmobile.com/constitution, you can find a plan that works for you. And realize that when you pay your bill, a portion of every dollar you spend goes to support organizations that are protecting our rights. TPUSA, Folds of Honor, even the Constitution Study. They also support veterans and first responders, so they help them as well. Not a bad use of your dollar. So again, please head to patriotmobile.com/constitution, find a plan that works for you, see if you're eligible for a discount. Everyone from veterans and first responders to families with multiple lines can get a discount as well. And when you check out, be sure to use the code CONSTITUTION and you'll get your lines activated absolutely free. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Again, head to patriotmobile.com/constitution, find a plan that works for you, and don't forget to use the code CONSTITUTION at checkout to get free activation. So I hope you come back and join us here for the Constitution Study. Hey, if you'd like me to cover a specific topic, well, just go to the website, constitutionstudy.com, and ask. I'll see what I can do. But again, I hope you can join us here and continue to support the work that we're doing. And again, maybe bring a couple friends the next time we meet for the Constitution Study.